Get ready for a new episode of KP Talks Dollars and Cents. Learn financial literacy and get real-time updates on all things housing, finance, and real estate with your host, Kevin Perenio. As an owner and C-level executive for 20 plus years in finance, KP is here to serve you with all of his knowledge and experience. Whether you're a broker, realtor, or just interested in the economy, this is the podcast for you. So let's get started. Here's your host, Kevin Perenio.
KP coming to you live from Scottsdale, Arizona. We're here at the Housing Wire Summit. Last session just ended. We had Tom Ferry speak. Gino, the CEO of Home Services of America. And we got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to walk you outside with the Paramount Princess. But before we get started, let me just say a little thing. Happy Breast Cancer Awareness Month to my wife, my mother, my sister, all the women out there. You know, let's take care of women's health and bring up some awareness for that. What's up, gang? Hey, good job, Clayton. Hey, Clayton. Clayton. Let's go. Nice job, Team Housing Wire. That's the CEO of Housing Wire, Clayton Collins. He lives in Dallas. Really good dude. Really, really good dude. I know a lot of us watch Housing Wire and get our news from there. So they put on a great summit here. There's one more day. It started yesterday. And tons of great content, tons of good speakers. Just check out Housing Wire Summit, the Housing Summit, and you can check out and see what's going on there. Okay, so National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Time to wear some pink ribbons. And I saw some people in our office dying to wear pink. Pretty awesome. I also want to say, I used to live in Florida, and I was in Tampa for 6 months. I have many friends still there, and I was in Fort Lauderdale for 13 years. And still have property out there as well. And having lived through several hurricanes, taken direct hit from both Wilma and Katrina, I can tell you that they can be devastating. I mean, absolutely devastating. So a lot of hearts, thoughts, and prayers going out to 101 people so far accounted for that passed, and their families, and for the recovery efforts. It is, housing has a problem with weather incidents, and this is not a political statement. It's a fact. The Harvard Joint Studies for Housing, they put out articles all the time talking about the potential losses for our industry with any kind of weather incidents, whether just normal storms, rains, or even major hurricanes like we just had with Hurricane Ian. Over $50 billion in counting and damage could run up a total as much as $250 billion. So, we obviously we have a big presence in Florida, mostly on the East Coast. So we had about 15 loans that were already funded, and we were working through that collateral. So far, so good. But I know that not everyone is as lucky. So again, more positive thoughts and vibes going that way. All right, let's talk about leverage. It was interesting. I wanted to talk about leverage because this week there was a Credit Suisse potential issue going on. So Credit Suisse is actually very important in our business. They're a broker dealer. They buy securities for non-QM loans. They're in finance. We buy and sell money. We buy and sell money in our business. And so if one of these buyers and sellers of money get over levered and they have too much debt, and the underlying assets that were used to initially take out that debt are worth less, that's when you start to see implosions. And that's why we had the implodometer back in 2008. And I know there's a lot of people on here that were not in housing in 2007, 2008. But leverage, credit, which we talked about, is something that, honestly makes the world go round. So there's cash, which is, there's a few $1 trillion in cash, but then there's like $50 trillion in credit. So, when you get over levered and you are unable to make payments based on prior credit given, you see defaults, you see collapses. So I talked about something last week. We had the contagion effect that we're worried about, and Credit Suisse may have seen. There was an internal memo that went out yesterday that talked about them having their leveraged debt instruments, and that those would possibly be at a turning point. And that internal memo got leaked, and it made its way to the press. So Credit Suisse is in the news for potentially being over-levered. Is our economy over-levered? You hear a lot about our debt and deficit, right? And our treasuries. With the full faith and credit of the United States of America, the federal government. You hear a lot about our debt and deficit, but we've been shrinking our money supply since February of 21, and that growth rate of our money supply has gone from 27% to just under 5%. So the money supply is shrinking, liquidity is shrinking. That is deleveraging, which is a good thing for our government to not default. And whether we're in a recession or not, we know that Europe is, we know that a lot of other countries are, and being in a recession means there's less growth and less ability to be able to make their payments for whatever debts they've taken out. Talking about governments, we're talking about, Australia, Japan, Bank of England recently. The Bank of England had to, at the same time while raising short-term interest rates, they had to buy long-term, their version of treasuries called the gilt. They had to buy that to help backstop a UK pension fund that was over-levered. So these kinds of collapses that could happen, even if we don't have a housing credit bubble, which we don't, which, by the way, Logan Motoshami is out here, the lead Housing Wire analyst. He put out a chart on Instagram yesterday showing that 1 in 5 loans back in 2006 or 7 were ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. So when the Fed raises up, that leverage gets cranked down and people's payments go higher. Right now, only 2 out of 100 loans are in ARMs or potentially could be over levered. So we have to watch money and what's going on around the world with the supply and the leverage out there. That is something that's very important. How about our personal balance sheets? Are your taxes going up because the housing prices keep going up endlessly? Did you barely get qualified, or your client barely get qualified for a mortgage, and now their taxes have gone up $300 a month? $300 a month. That is a big deal for your average consumer, your average homeowner. So we're watching. Speaking of things that are over levered, inflation has been the last target for the Fed to tackle, which is why they keep raising their rates. So, we're talking about housing, which they're clearly crushing housing at the moment. It's a difficult time for us, but we'll get through it. We'll just keep racking and stacking and getting bars in the door. First-time home buyers, rent's going up too. So finding first-time home buyers, something we do really well, especially as a local originator. You're putting someone in a home and keeping them from renting and making a landlord rich. Having said that, the Fed is trying to bring down inflation of housing prices, and that with interest rates in the high 6s and 7s in some markets, that's been their goal. But they've also talked about the wage price spiral. So with all these jobs out there and people getting higher and higher amounts of pay, they have the ability to pay higher and higher amounts for goods and services. And so today, the jobs report, the JOLTS report came out, and there was 1 million less jobs open in 1 month. That's a rapid rate of change. So maybe the Fed's work is starting to get done. Maybe we'll continue to see housing, food, energy. We'll see some of these things start to come down. By the way, regarding energy, a really big thing to look at tomorrow is OPEC will decide how much to cut their supply of oil, potentially cutting 500,000 barrels a day or 1 million going into the winter seasons. With Russia, destroying the Nord Stream pipeline, there's less supply. That's leverage that OPEC is using so they can make more money per unit, but that will actually make inflation worse as we go into the months. So there was a nice little rebound of the stock market for a couple of days because the UN and I guess the European Union basically said, "Hey, Fed, stop raising the rates, man. You're going to crush us. The dollar's too strong." But then, so we saw a little stock market rally. And tomorrow with the oil cuts, we may see it go back the other way. So I'm not a financial advisor, not responsible for your losses, only your profits. I would nibble at 3,600 S&P. I would buy it at 3,400. I would chomp at 3,200. Have a good one. Cheers.
You've been listening to KP Talks Dollars and Cents, a top-rated show for those who want to learn about the economy and mortgage environment. Tune in each week for more episodes, and please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Kevin Perenio does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through KP Talks Dollars and Cents. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. For more info, follow KP Talks Dollars and Cents on all of our social channels.